What's going on, guys? Here, Jonathan Byrd from muscleandbrawn.com. I'm going to attempt to answer some of your questions, give you some background on what I've got going on. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a competitive powerlifter with a pro total of 2380 in the 308 class and a 2170 single ply total from a couple years back. I've been ranked in the top 10 in pretty much every powerlifting category in my weight class for the last couple years. And really had progress, was really moving, training for the XPC semifinals, and then I suffered a pec tear. It was not just a pec, but it was the pec tendon, and eventually it pulled itself all the way from the bone to retract it all the way to the other far side of my chest. So I had surgery 19 weeks ago. They put it back together, and it's been a long rehab process at this point, but it's been pretty quick. Compared to what most people would think. The first few weeks of rehab were just spent completely immobilized. I was allowed to take the brace off for at night as long as I had it propped up, but had to make sure I was wearing it during sleep and everything else. I was supposed to wear it for 4 weeks. I ended up taking it off about 2.5 weeks just because I could not stand it anymore. And then I started to follow the PT protocols on basic rehab. And my range of motion came back pretty quick. It was painful, and I'd be lying to you if I said it wasn't. But, I never pushed myself to the point where I thought I was endangering re-tearing that pec. So after the first few weeks, I started doing leg extensions, leg curls, and some light leg press just to try to maintain some of my lower body strength. And it paid great dividends at this point because I don't feel like I've lost a ton of strength in my lower body. So after week 8, I transitioned to starting to squat with a safety squat bar, high reps, 135, trying to do basically as much as I could stand every time I'd come in the gym. Just trying to make sure I maintain some muscle there. And eventually, I worked up to in the 500s, squatting raw with the safety squat bar, and then I transitioned to wearing some old briefs and worked up to it in the 700s for a few reps. I also used a rackable chamber squat bar and worked up to 500 plus about 280 pounds of chain for a few reps until week 18, which was the first week of which I used a regular squat bar. I worked up to 715 for 2 reps in a single ply suit, straps down, just trying to get a feel for being with a regular bar again. Everything went well, carried a really high bar so that I made sure I didn't put any stress on the pec. Week 19 was my first week back deadlifting, heavy. I pulled 595 for 2 reps and then went down and did some stiff leg work off a 100-pound plate. With a traditional stance. And the reason why that was important because it was big for me, and the fact that I had been having a lot of cramping issues and pulling issues when I was pulling with a traditional stance before the pec tear, which should have been a huge indicator for me that, 1, there's something wrong with that pec, and 2, I needed to be doing something about it. But I didn't listen to my body, and needless to say, I tore my pec. So, and let me be clear, I tore my pec benching, not deadlifting, but, anytime that you're having all those kinds of issues, you should know that there's a pec, there's a muscle issue, there's a mobility issue. And I knew that, but I wasn't smart enough to listen to my own advice. So hopefully you will listen to my advice. At this point, bench-wise, I've worked up. Last week in week 18, I did 185 for 10 reps, 205 for 10 reps, 225 for 10 reps, 245 for 3 pauses, and then 275 for 3 reps off the 2 board. All this stuff is really light. It's really just more or less me trying to condition my pec to handle weights again in the bench press. My best raw bench press was in the low 500s. So obviously it's a long way from where I've been, but at this point, only 19 weeks, I've got to feel great about where I'm at. It's going to be a long process to get that pec back to where it was, strength-wise, but, it's not like I have much of a choice. So if I had to take a guess, I could mention, probably in the low 300s right now. But that would not be the smart thing to do at this point. So if you have any questions about powerlifting, the rehab process, things I'm doing to prevent having another pec tear, mobility, stretching, warm-ups, whatever it may be, feel free to shoot me a message, leave me a comment, follow, shoot me a message on muscleandbrawn.com, check out my training log. Best of luck and keep training. Jonathan Byrd, have a good one.